All right, I'm really excited. This is really, I've been waiting a long time for this. This is Paula Harris, and I really have been waiting a long time to have what we call a good old reunion. And the reunion I have is with the people who work with me. And there are people that work with me that aren't here, but the three main people that have worked with me over the last, I would say, 20 years are David Garcia, Tom Hamlin, and Bill Crowley. And so, you can't have a Scully without a Mulder. So it's like, and you say, why do you have a Mulder? Well, I have to have a Mulder because a lot of times I think I'm going crazy for what I'm doing, and I need to have some feedback. So these kind gentlemen have been with me for years, and thank God. By the way, I don't know what I'm getting other people's pictures on the screen. It sells everything on their okay mute. You have to mute yourself, and that way we'll allow everybody else to talk. Except, okay, we got it. So the fact is that it helps to have somebody. Plus, there have been times that have been quite dangerous, and it makes me feel good to have a guy there. In the case of when I went to the Atacama Desert and I had altitude sickness, I had Tom with me in the hospital. So it was very, very, wonderful that these guys have this passion for research. And we'll start with David Garcia, and he's in Novato, California, close to San Francisco. And David, you can tell him when I met you, I don't know how much about my work you knew when I met you at Contact in the Desert, but then I sent you 300 books.
301 books. Well, let me tell you a little bit about myself. First of all, I want to say Happy New Year, everyone. I'm very honored to be here, Paula, and everybody today. My name is David Garcia. I'm a teacher, fitness trainer, and a former EMS police and firefighter. Um, just a little bit about my background. As a kid, I always was interested in UFOs. My brother and I, we'd always watch those programs, In Search of and so forth. And I've been I've been practicing transcendental meditation for approximately 20 years. And I believe meditation is the key to raising your consciousness and becoming more peaceful, less stress, and one with the cosmos. In fact, just this morning, I attended an event here in Northern California with over 100 meditators coming together to create like a wave of peace, coherence, and a wholeness that will resonate throughout 2025. Raising our consciousness is what Paula's work is all about. Not so much nuts and bolts anymore, but raising our consciousness to be more aware of our surroundings and so forth. So Paula mentioned earlier when we met, we actually met 12 years ago at a UFO conference called Contact in the Desert. That was 2013. I was with my friend Jim. We were camping out, and I was very interested in hearing Paula's lecture because of her extensive background. Paula had worked 6 years with the father of ufology, Dr. J. Allen Hynek, with his UFO investigations. She's also had her interviews with friends. She also, did interviews, but she was his personal confidant. Colonel Corso also, who claimed that he was given alien technology from 1947 Roswell UFO crash and led secret projects to jumpstart advancements in lasers, fiber optics, and so forth. And after hearing her speak at the conference, I purchased a couple of her books, and the rest is history. Okay. Throughout the years, between UFO cases, like Paula mentioned, she would send me a lot of different material to read and learn and to get up to speed with ufology and cases that she was currently working on and some of her future ET cases. She was very keen on learning about the rich. She was very keen on me learning about the very rich, the early space brothers, the contactee information like Manger and Van Tassel, and Adamski, which would basically lay the foundation for me to understand how long disclosure had been occurring. What I enjoyed the most about working with Paula was that she would do her investigative work in the field, boots on the ground, and get to the nitty gritty. Paula was not a sit at a desk and write her report type of person. She would go to the source, investigate in the field, even if it meant risking her life, like she mentioned, in high altitude mountains in South America, where we almost lost her, or working day and night with no sleep. That happened many, many times. I remember talking to Paula to have a successful UFO conference in Laughlin, Nevada. Paula always did her work with the highest integrity as well. One of the first things I did was to interview a retired military sergeant. Was Clifford Stone. It was actually we interviewed him in his house, and also I remember in a restaurant, and that was very life changing to me. Learning how a selected military personnel were involved with ETs and the work Sergeant Stone did was mind blowing to me. I remember Paula and sitting in the restaurant, my mouth was like my jaw was open. I couldn't believe all this important information he was telling us. Clifford explained that ETs had families just like us, and also some unfortunately were being mistreated by the military, and that really made Clifford upset. He told us about the relationship he had with an extraterrestrial who took him to the other side to actually see his son who passed away in a motorcycle accident. Do you remember that, Paula, when he mentioned that to us?
Yeah.
That was very intriguing to me and life changing. And then during one of the recordings that we were doing, orbs were actually floating in the room. They were coming up and around. So that was very, very interesting. Let me talk a little about the Trinity, New Mexico site. So working there and interviewing Jose with Paula was another big highlight of my career working with Paula. Working at the crash site and hearing Jose's story from 1945 when he was a kid about an avocado-shaped spaceship that landed in his family's field a couple months after the detonation of the first atomic bomb, and the ETs he witnessed who were struggling in the spaceship. Paula, Tom, and I went back to the crash site to investigate, and I remember we wore hazmat suits to pick some of the poisonous plants for analysis, like you mentioned earlier. That was very interesting. And Tom broke out in this horrible rash, not only on his hands, but on his face as well. And we were very suspect about those plants, like who put them there, why would they do that? Also want to show you a picture here. This is a picture that UFO researcher James Rigney took with his camera. And he sent this picture to Paula and I and said, Paula, something showed up in the picture. And if you look closely right over here, right between Paula and Tom, right above Paula's head, there's a little kind of Paula calls it a ghost. Mm-hmm. Okay. But Jose Padilla said he met this extraterrestrial in a casino probably like 2 or 3 months before this picture came out. And that was very, very interesting. Anyway, Paul, do you want me to stop for questions or do you want me to keep going?
Also did some digging to try to find pieces, and there were snakes in that area.
Oh yes, yes, we did a lot of digging to try to come up with some extra pieces from the crash, and it was a little bit difficult because of that poisonous plant that was in there. Here's a picture of Jose and myself going through the dirt and trying to siphon through and find some fragments. Another picture here of Jose and I, and that was very, very interesting.
And you lived through the actual, like Tom and like Bill, lived through the actual going to the Old Barn Cafe, seeing the area. And what is your assessment of the Trinity case?
I mean, the Trinity case is a case that everybody should learn about because it happened a couple of years before the Roswell incident, and so it is a very important case that really never really made the history books until Paula and Jacques Vallée did their work and wrote the book The Trinity to teach people that, you know what, there was a crash before the infamous Roswell case occurred.
And the reason why there were poisonous plants is because they didn't want me going back. And they,
Yes,
in that circle, they what they did was I don't they it had to be the Bureau of Land Management, but in that area they planted cockle-spur, and that is a very toxic plant, but nowhere else, just in the circle of where the UFO was. And so
right. Where the yeah, go ahead.
and so, David, you were there in a hazmat suit trying to collect samples, and we gave it
Right.
to Mufon, who misjudged the whole thing, called it Jim when we sent it to two other labs, and it was Cocklesburg, and they refused. Mufon refused to talk about Trinity today. They will not let me or Jacques discuss Trinity. So that's one of the things I'm going to make clear here. But
Yes.
you were one of the researchers. Actually, the other two guys are too. But talk
Yes.
about what impressed you the most about the 1950s and the giant rock era, because you were with us in Josh,
Hmm.
you're with us there at the Integratron. And what impressed you about doing that work?
Well, what impressed me was when we went with Robert Short, we got to meet Van Tassel's nephew, Daniel Boone, who isn't with us any longer. So that was really cool to meet some of the pioneers of ufology and going to Giant Rock and witnessing
Could you
witnessing Robert Short make contact with Cordon, I believe, Corton, and I got some pictures of over the giant rock of a UFO. Remember, I took that picture here. It's right here, and yeah, they said that ET was named Corton at Giant Rock, and both Tom and I witnessed paranormal activity when Reverend Robert Short, was making contact. And here's a picture of Robert Short. They're sitting. He's blindfolded. He's speaking in a different tongue. With Corton is speaking through him. And as we were watching um, Robert Short speak, I said, "Hey, Tom," I says, "do you see something falling off of his elbows?" And Tom goes, "Well, I don't know if I see anything falling off his elbows, but I see an electrical activity going up and around above his head." So Tom saw that, and I saw like it was substance. It was like white substance falling from his elbows. And after Robert Short was done, and we'll talk about what Robert Short will surmise what we took from the channel. But I asked Robert Short afterwards. I said, "Robert, there was a substance falling from your elbows. What was it?" And he says that it was ectoplasma. And ectoplasm, he says, it's some kind of a energy that was leaving his body during the channeling. So that was very interesting.
Now, as far as channeling, is not regular channeling because his voice changed. It was not.
Right.
It was actual ET that was coming out of his mouth. It was not his voice, and he had on shades over his eyes, and his head had
Yes.
gone to the side. But David, do you want to wrap this up by talking about what he said in 2014?
Yeah, he said in 2014 there was going to be a separation, and he mentioned Vladimir Putin and said basically that we need to come together as one, and separation is going to do us in. He says we need to come together and be as one. And he mentioned Vladimir Putin before the whole war went down with Russia and Ukraine. But he was basically Corton through Robert Short, the channeling, he was basically warning us of things to come, that
And you,
things aren't going that well, and we need to come together and be one. And separation is not going to help humankind.
yeah, but you also took photos of UFOs. We all took photos of the rock, but you're the only one who got UFOs. Do you want to show them the picture?
Yes, here's the picture of giant rock right here. And then here's the UFO. This is a enlarged picture of the UFO, and right next to it is the smaller picture. You can see that right there. And yeah, we took a bunch of pictures that day. And that night, I was looking at my camera, and I said, "Hey, Paula, we captured something here." And Paula zoomed in on it and made a picture, and it's definitely unidentified flying object over giant rock. And that was very interesting.
As the channeling was going, but I was taking pictures too, and everybody else was taking pictures. David is the only one that got the UFO picture. So I'm thinking to myself that that is a phenomenon in itself. Five people could be taking pictures of the rock and only one person gets that. And it's kind of a message, it's kind of a communication.
Yes. And yeah, it was pretty interesting. And that was watching Robert Short do the channeling, like Paula mentioned, the different voices that he was using. It was some of the people in the group were not taking it seriously, but I was taking it seriously. I definitely was a believer, and seeing the ectoplasm falling off of his elbows during the lecture, I know what I saw with my own eyes, and it was a paranormal activity that I've never seen before.
Okay, hold up the photo closer to the camera because that's how Robert did it. Go ahead.
Hmm.
Oh, yeah, back it away a little bit. Back it away. You have to talk for us to see you. You
Yeah,
can.
so here is the camera person. Here's Robert Short sitting in the chair behind Giant Rock, and he has his blindfolds on, and we have the actually the transcripts right here, and he basically says this is Central Control calling Addie, Central Control calling Addie, stand by, and he's basically getting ready to become Corton, if you will. And when he's ready, he starts speaking it, like you said, in a different voice. His voice changes, and he says, "I'm the representative from for my system, Cordus, and I agree. I greet you in peace and in love. We would say to you, each of you, that you gathered together and begun on a phase of activity that will link you all together as you carry out your mission, which is to raise the knowledge and the input to your people on your planet, and to raise the consciousness and their understanding of what is taking place on your planet at the present time. Your planet is in, as we should state, a state of unbalance, and or which has been blown